welcome back to Highlander Heart, and this time we are going to the land of computer games.
Yes, we're getting digital.
We are getting digital. Yeah, thank you. We are, and believe it or not, there are more than you think that there might be. So hold on as we go for this ride, which takes us all the way back. Let's just flashback to 1986. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
To the old Molkai thing.
That's right.
Rendition. 1986 was our first computer game. And it was a tie-in that came out a couple of weeks or so after the theatrical release in the UK. I'm not entirely sure was sort of what the release was for the US, but I haven't played this game.
Me either. I didn't have a computer at the time, so.
But did you? Well, I did. I had a Commodore 64. And I pretty much sure I had one at the time that this game came out, but because I would have been 13 in 1986, I didn't have. I had seen a poster when I was that age, and I remember that when it was out theatrically at a bus stop. But I didn't know much more about it, and they were expensive to get, and I pretty much only bought things that I was really passionate about, like Ghostbusters, I think I had. And that for the Commodore 64. So I didn't have this game, and I wish I'd played it. That said, it's not very good, apparently.
I was going to say, are you sure you wished you played it?
No. So despite the fact that I haven't played this, I have done a little bit of research into it. And although I must say, not as much research as Kim Justice, who has a YouTube channel out there. Please go and check it out, and check out this video on Highlander and Ocean, because it's really, really interesting. And I'll just kind of give you the cliff notes, basically, on what he uncovers through that. So it was released by Ocean, but it wasn't coded and designed by Ocean. It was outsourced to a company called Canvas that was based in Liverpool. And it was formed by some people who used to work at Imagine, which was a very big deal back in the day.
Yeah.
And they sort of splintered off, and some went to form a company that was amazing. Did some of the coolest games I remember from when I was a kid at the time, and the others did this. And at the time, these people, I think Imagine was a really big deal at the time. They made a huge amount of money. They were young. They were young coders at the forefront of this sort of new technology and new kind of entertainment industry.
Right.
They had the whole thing. They had fast cars. The whole rock star lifestyle for these kind of guys who were basically coding in their bedrooms. And I think the part of the problem was the ones who were very creative and doing it for the right reasons went off and formed this other great company. Whereas possibly the ones who loved the lifestyle and the money that it gave them,
one of the money, yes, went
and formed this one. And I'm only speaking from what I've learned. I don't know that myself, so apologies if I'm getting that wrong. However, so the intention seems to be that they picked up an awful lot of, because Ocean did an awful lot of movie tie-ins and TV series tie-ins. They did things like Miami Vice and RoboCop and things like that.
Right.
So basically, what seemed to happen was that they turned out an awful lot of material very quickly in order to get a quick return, on the hope that nobody would notice at Ocean that they were awful games, because they were doing so many of them.
Right.
So what we wound up with for a Highlander game, which obviously, as we know, it had already opened in the States to a less than spectacular return. And that's a whole other story.
Yeah.
As to why that was, why it
that's
was
a whole other.
Yes. Yeah. But so by the time it came over here, I think there is talk that there was a more ambitious idea for this game that was going to be more of a platform game, I think, than what we wound up with. What we wound up with, though, was basically two sprites with swords. Yes, and in terms of I think the first one that came out was a Spectrum, but the Spectrum one was, I think, about 4 colors you could have on the whole thing. So they were just white sprites that would just do that. And then there were only 3 people that you could battle in this entire game.
Right.
The first one was Ramirez, but he wasn't teaching you what to do. He was trying to kill you.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
yeah. And by all accounts, for the most part, he did, because it was so hard to play this game, because to learn the things that you needed to learn were almost impossible, and you would just get killed. If you could get past him, then you could get to your second immortal. Let's see if you remember this guy, Fazir. Fazir? Do you remember Fazir?
Fazir.
Fazir, yeah, the guy in the car. Oh, yeah. Oh, Fazil, right? But
right. So it was kind of a
yeah.
mishmash of somebody you knew and someone you didn't, because
yeah, it's like they were on the obviously on the phone, and sorry, the second immortal. Yeah, okay, got it. Wrote it down. Chinese whispers. Pass that on. What's this? Fazir. Right.
Done.
It gets worse. The third one you can fight, who for some reason had the face of a frog, was the Kurghan.
Yes.
Spelled Kerghan. Again, Kurg. Yeah, no, I don't know how to spell it. It's fine. I got it. Yeah, thanks.
I got it. We know it. Yeah. Well, maybe he looked the way he did and had that name as because he was from Zeist. I don't know.
Yes, maybe he was. Yeah, maybe they have sort of
too
frog
early.
immortals on Zeist.
They had the eels. Maybe there were other animal-like creatures on Zeist that were immortal. I don't know.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, there could be like an offshoot of the lizardy frog-looking one from the Lord.
Yeah.
Maybe that's kind of, maybe that's what it is. So yeah, so this game basically just the sprites, the same action every time, slightly different sprite that you're fighting against at the end. The arguably the better version, I think, was the Amstrad one, because there were extra sounds. I think with the Commodore 64, there was a rendition of It's a Kind of Magic on there as well, I think. But for the most part, yeah, it sucked. I think it was basically what I've heard and what I've seen, and certainly from what I've seen, it was a very poor attempt to craft a game, and
it was a cash grab.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. But I don't
funny because I agree with Kim Justice at the beginning of that video. He talks about he's said before that no one sets out to make a bad game, and I've said something similar for years in movies. No one sets out to make a bad movie. No one sets out to make a bad TV show. I mean, your intention obviously is to make money, but presumably in a lot of these things, there's creative people behind it. They want to do something that they're proud of and really flex their creativity. But much like with Galactica 1980 on TV, you have those moments where this was obviously one of those where it's like, I don't know, we're just doing this to make money off the name. Let's throw something together and get it out there, right? So mission accomplished in this case.
Absolutely. And just for the record, I loved Galactica 80.
All right, that's another discussion for another time. We will. We need to have a whole new podcast now.
The bikes. I wanted one of those bikes somewhere. I digress. I'm going to get killed for that, especially by Kevin at Blood of Kings. He's
Galactica 1980. Really? Come on. That's the okay. Never. We'll talk. We'll talk.
Yeah. But the Enemy Mine episode with the Cylon was incredible. It's still my favorite episode of Black.
Yes, the one with Starbuck. That's the only good. We'll talk.
Yeah, I was, but getting back to this, they, yeah, I think, but I don't think that the blame lays at Ocean. I think the blame lays squarely on the shoulders of Canvas, who I think at that time were literally just spending a couple of weeks coding and chucking them out and hoping for the best. I think, you know, and maybe there's some quality control issues at Ocean, but by that point they probably didn't feel like they had any time to do anything about it, so they just hoped for the best. So there you go. So from there, in terms of gaming, we get to whiz ahead to what's right behind you, and you've played this game.
I have. Yeah, so I have it's not a long story, but I've got a history with this game a little bit. I mean, so I'm not what you would call definitely a hardcore gamer. I mean, I enjoy games, mainly console games. I've played some computer games, but they all seem to be kind of kind of derivatives of that first Highlander game, where it's just like, well, there's no challenge or skill to it. It just matters how many times you can hit something, or how well you are at jumping over the plant trying to eat you, or jump on the mushrooms or whatever. So I never been a huge gamer, but being a Highlander fan, and also, you know, having at the time watched the animated series when Atari announced they were making making a console. I was interested because I liked the 2600 when I was a kid and things like that. But what sold me was they were doing a Highlander game, and not only that, but this was going to be their first CD game. This is back when games were just cartridges. For those of you that are too young for that, they used to come on these cartridges. But Atari was one of, I believe, I was working at a software store at the time, and I'm pretty sure I'm remembering this correctly, but I think Jaguar was the first system that had CD games, and it was pretty close behind, I think, Nintendo and others, but they kind of buddied to the market. And I was like, great. So using my employee discount, I bought a Jaguar, and it was a CD attachment thing you had to get. And all I bought was the system, the attachment, and this game. And so I spent a lot of time playing this. I was single and living alone at the time, so I had plenty of free time.
Yeah.
So I spent many an hour playing this, and I have to say it was difficult to play. The gameplay was not straightforward. There would be many times where you couldn't get, you know, Quentin facing the right direction or swinging the sword, quite the same way. In a way, though, to me, that was kind of like, well, that's a little bit more realistic than just, you know, whacking on somebody enough until you kill them. So that was kind of how I, you know, kind of wrote it off in my head. It had some great animated sequences from the animated series that were seamless, that worked well. And they didn't really take you out of the game. They kind of incorporated into the game. As you can see, the graphics by today's standard were not spectacular, but at the time it was pretty revolutionary. So I have to say I really enjoyed playing the game. I was, I would say I was slightly disappointed that it was based on the animated series and not on, you know, the actual movies or TV series. But, you know, in its defense, that kind of lent itself to, you know, the animated series lent itself to a animated game, right? So it really felt like it incorporated that world and kind of the storyline to the animated series. So, you know, I liked it. It was quite enjoyable. Honestly, I wish I still had my Jaguar and had the game. I would absolutely play it today. It might look a little weird on, you know, big screen HD TV, but you know, I still think it would be a lot of fun. Did you ever have the chance to play it?
I didn't. I have a very vivid memory of standing in I guess it would have been like an HMV or something like that, or equivalent when I was at the age where it came out. And at the time, I was working in a video store, and I had some sort of surplus cash that I would, in the weekend I could go and sort of, I would usually go and I'd go and get like a VHS that I could see, some terrible kind of like straight to video thing that I remember getting a Braxis or something, which one just because the cover looked nice. So with things like that, and I was standing in this store, and I remember looking at it and being, oh wow, it's this, this animated show's got the thing, and then the console was right there, and I'm just totaling it up in my head. I'm thinking,
Well, it was expensive, even
yeah,
by today's standards.
yeah,
For what it is, it was fairly pricey if you account for inflation or whatever. So it
yeah,
was.
no, it really was, and it was, yeah. I just couldn't bring myself to spend that amount of money on it just for that one game. Rattle forward a bunch of years, I wound up buying the N64 just so I could play South Park. So that did happen eventually.
Right.
But back then it didn't. And I have regretted that, because I did want to, I mean, now you want to own everything that's got Highlander written on it. And I would have loved to have had
Yeah.
that. And yeah, it would have been nice to have played it. Did you ever finish it though?
I never finished it. I never got to the end.
No.
Uh, and I think it was, I don't think it was for lack of trying. It was more frustration because, like I said, it was clunky to play. The thing I did appreciate about it, though, is it wasn't just, here, go off and fight this immortal. Oh, here's another immortal to fight and all that. And, obviously because of it being based on the animated series
Yeah.
and it being rated for kids, it wasn't a lot of going around
Mm.
chopping off immortals' heads. There were like missions you had to do. You had to free villagers. You had to do, other things, and they were related to the animated series too, which was interesting. So I don't know. I want to say I did get to the final battle with Cortan, but I think by that point the clunkiness of the gameplay just got too frustrating, and it was one of those always, yeah, I'll get back to that eventually, and I just never did. So
Yeah. Because I'm curious to know whether you actually are able to kill him.
right, yeah, me too, because I wasn't able to, but
No, no, exactly. But we know from having talked about the animated series and having read the script for the animated movie that the kind of the series kind of became, was that he, there was never any intention of having him actually kill Cortan. He was just going to let him, sort of be at the bottom of a crevasse or whatever, or just, he didn't want to kill him, which was really nice. So I always wonder if that was kind of how that kind of played out in the computer game, I guess.
yes,
We'll never know.
I don't know, unless there's emulators or something out there, or but
Yeah.
I'm curious enough. I would like to revisit it now, and
Mm.
whether somebody is able to, if it's in the in available, by legal means, of course. But it would
Yeah.
be fun to try to kind of revisit it on the computer to see if it's something that's actually still playable, or if I'm just fondly remembering it, and to actually maybe finish it someday.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that would be really cool.
Yeah.
So, I mean, those two really are, for the most part, the only two Highlander games which have been on general release as for consoles. I guess if you can call the 80s generation of computers, consoles.
Yes.
Um, but they weren't the only thing that have been developed and worked on it. In fact, there are a few other kind of, I don't want to call them oddities, because I know they're remembered quite fondly. Something else, unfortunately, I don't recall ever seeing, but I'm aware that it existed and was spoken of quite well by some of the people that we know, was on the Reicher site around the time Highlander Season 6 was out. There was a Flash Shockwave media game that apparently was quite heavily played by people, but I don't remember that.
It's weird because I don't remember that. There's something in the back of my head that's telling me, yeah, you knew about that, but
Yeah, yeah. No, I don't know. It is strange, but unfortunately, we have no knowledge of that. I'm very sorry, but
yeah.
moving forward, we get to the first of what are generally known to be basically what happens to a Highlander game. Um, it goes into development. Um, they produce some great stuff, and it never sees the light of day.
Right.
And this has happened several times, and again, more than we knew before doing
Yeah.
this episode, and more than maybe some of the people watching.
Well, and I know at least a couple of them, there was quite a bit of publicity done for them as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So the
Enough that
first,
I was aware and got excited, and then it's like,
yeah,
okay.
yeah, exactly. And I know you were excited about this one, which was it was called Highlander the Gathering, and it was around 2001 that this was being developed, and it was a MMORPG. He says,
Good.
sounding like he has no idea what that means, but I do because I googled it. Massively multiplayer online role-playing game was what it was.
Yes.
And for the most part, if you ask somebody what they want out of a Highlander game, they're going to tell you that they want that. And there is a little bit of footage from it that we can show. And so here we have this guy. I mean, at this point, I don't know whether this was an existing character, whether this was a new character. He's got a little soul patch there that doesn't necessarily mean that he's Connor or Duncan. He looks more like Duncan, to be honest. And this guy's back in the Highlands. We've got some kilt action going on.
Right.
And some modern day action. And excitingly, the modern day stuff is in front of Silvercut, which I always love. I love it when they throw things like
Yes.
that. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, one of the projects that was worked upon, and for whatever reason, just didn't quite make it all the way through, which is a shame.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it would have been a lot of fun to play.
Yeah.
Um, I'll save my thoughts on the MMO aspect of it for my potential pitch later.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Before we get to the one that everybody knows about, the IDOS one, there is a precursor, which was a pitch only, which some say possibly didn't even have a pitch. It's a bit of a weird one, but there exists this footage of a tiny little bit of gameplay. And it was, for all intents and purposes, a precursor to the IDOS game. There was some connection to it in terms of the company and mergers that happened later on that would kind of ultimately evolve this, which I think this gameplay is on a PS2, to what we eventually then saw for the IDOS game. So let's get to the one that everybody knows about. This is the one that had the most publicity. It was an IDOS game. Now, I remember when I went to the last UK convention we had was in Leeds. It's the one where they showed the footage of Highlander the Source that everybody was applauding. Little did we know. And that was a great weekend for a lot of reasons. Seeing that footage was great. I got to interview Bill Panzer at the time, bless him, and it wasn't that long before he left us. And one of the other things was I spoke to a guy from IDOS that was there. And we had a bit of a chat, and I was telling him what I would love to see in a computer game. He was quite interested, and we'll get to that a little bit later when we do the pitches. And it was all looking so good. And so it wasn't Duncan O'Connor, it was Owen. Let's have another MacLeod join the family. Why not? It's a big family. Now, the great thing is, thanks to our friends at Davis Panzer, in other words, Kareem, Michael Damashki, thank you so much, as ever, for your service to us all as Highlander fans.
Yes.
He managed to uncover, with the help of Ewan McNulty, who helped to convert a file that was found somewhere in the magical archives.
Yes.
It turned out to be a script.
Yeah.
He finds scripts. Scripts for things you never knew had scripts,
Right.
like the animated movie.
Yeah.
So we have a script for this Highlander game with Owen McLeod. Now, just to give you, we'll do this kind of as a rough overview. Basically, what's important to know. Owen's from the Highlands, but he found himself in Pompeii, effectively kidnapped from the Highlands and taken to go and fight as a gladiator. Who should be training gladiators, Joe? Who should it be?
Would it be Mythos?
Yes, it is. Great guess. Great guess.
Because of course he would.
Of course, absolutely. I can see him training gladiators.
Sure.
I can't. I'm not really sure what I think, but anyway, it's fine. So he is a Lannister or a gladiator trainer.
Does he pay his debts? No.
Well, we'll find out.
Wrong franchise.
And basically, Mythos decides to take Owen to one side, and another pre-mortal, because Owen isn't immortal yet, called Lucius. And here's a moment, a lovely little moment from the script that I'd like to read to you. I will cue some appropriate music over the top. So they duel. He gets them to duel. The end of their duel evenly matched, speed for speed, skill for skill. Owen and Lucius both strike at the same time, each running his sword into the other's body. Hold on, the two of them are impaled together, locked together in death, faces inches from each other, each staring in pain and disbelief into each other's eyes. Small lightning crackles play across the metal of swords, conjoining with both men as they die. I mean, it really paints a picture.
I'm just kind of, wondering what was the rating on this game.
I don't know. Hey, it was Pompeii,
Yeah.
Anything
No, Pompeii stays in Pompeii.
Oh, it was a lovely, tender moment. It was very sweet. So here we now have Lucius and Owen, who are effectively immortal twins. They have killed each other, become immortal together, and this is all part of kind of Mythos's query Machiavellian kind of plan for what's going to happen in the game. When we head to modern day, we're finding out that in New York there is a terrorist group called the Kraken. Cue tons of jokes about unleashing the Kraken, that are killing people with gas attacks, subway blasts, things like that. And that also comes into play for the story as we go through. The Kraken have hunters, which I'm not clear. It's a recurring theme. The animated series has hunters. The live action series has hunters.
Yeah.
So, we're getting some sort of, I don't know where it pertains to in that. I'm sure it's nothing to do with the animated series, but you've got some stuff in there with that as well. We roll through the game like that with Mythos as his, still there in present day as his mentor, turning up every now and then. So they'll get to listen to Peter Winfield's lovely voice, and which unfortunately we don't get to do because this never happened.
Right.
Right up until the very end, where, spoiler alert, there's a mysticism in here. There's some special stones that Lucius wanted at some point in Pompeii. There's a special sword, which is called the Kusanagi blade. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong, which has the ability to kill they said the Kurgan then, the Kraken. And that is also a sword that Mythos wants. So Owen does all the deeds in true kind of Indiana Jones fashion, has the sword, and in comes Mythos, takes the sword. Yep, that's mine. Thanks very much. Thanks for doing that for me.
Peace out.
See you later. Owen's not having any of it. Mythos is like, no, come on, you're going to do this over a sword? Owen's like, yeah. So they fight. And obviously, depending on how good you are at the game by this point, you kill Mythos. The sound of thousands of fangirls screaming.
Hey, some fanboys too. I kind of like Mythos.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. No, 100%. I think that would be, that will be a tough one. But hey, you get to fight Mythos, and that's something I've always wanted to see in a game. So that would be pretty cool.
But the good news is he acts nothing like Mythos in this game. So
yeah, no, that's true.
Maybe it's the Ron Perlman Mythos that.
Maybe, yeah. It could be. You never know. So once Mythos is dispatched, Owen goes to kill the Kraken and discovers, of course, the Kraken is Lucius, his immortal twin of a sort. And they fight to the end, and of course, all being well, Owen wins, and Lucius is killed. Now Lucius has a through line where he is basically trying to revive his greatest love, because she died and whatever, and he needs this nanotechnology that is only found in present day to be able to revive her. That's his kind of character arc, and at the very end, he has managed to do this. So with Lucius lying dead, beheaded on the floor, Owen walks off into the sunset, and she has a glint in her eye as she watches him walk off. And obviously that's setting up your sequel. So that's that, right? That's it. And we've seen the trailer. So we knew it was in development, and we've seen some, and it looks great. It looked like a good time. It's a fairly interesting story. And so that's the big IDOS computer game, right?
Yeah, sure.
It's not the only one.
No, it's not. That is true. It is not.
Absolutely. And here again, as you know, we love it when we find out things that we had no idea about.
Yes. That's kind of become our thing for this.
Yeah.
To give you guys the things that we didn't even know about, and we're certain that none of you knew about. So
exactly. So, but we're not going to tell you about this because what do we know?
Yeah. we should talk to someone that was there, maybe.
Yeah. Maybe somebody who kind of was involved in developing it. That would be a good idea.
Sure. Yeah, even better. Yeah.
All right. Well, look, without further ado, Craig Allen, thank you for joining us. I always get that reaction.
Fantastic to be here. Ish, whoever here is.
Yes. In the
ether. No, absolutely. Yeah, we are multi countries. Joe's over in the US, Portland. I'm over here in the UK. And where are you at the moment?
So I'm actually making my way back to Los Angeles, heading into the hot zone. I was up in Seattle for a couple weeks, and now I'm driving down because the age that we live in. But it's kind of fun. So I'm a little bit outside of Sacramento right now.
Oh wow! Excellent. Oh, well, thank you for joining us, like mid-journey. I appreciate that.
We're all on a journey.
Yes, it certainly feels like it, right?
Yeah, 2020. It's going to be sad to see this year go by.
I've often joked that I look forward to the Netflix miniseries, "The Decade That Was 2020." So
I know, right? It's the year that just keeps giving. It's gonna be quite a thing to share with the world going forward, and hopefully 2021 more time is not what we get, right? Hopefully we get 2021, but we'll see. You never know what you're gonna get.
No, you don't. Absolutely. So listen, tell us about, now this is a video game that I didn't know existed even in its conception. I think everybody is aware of its its predecessor, the Owen McLeod one, because there was a big trailer and people had sort of seen this, and it was lauded that it was going to be coming out. But this one I knew nothing about. and I love it.
It was a yeah. It's kind of interesting how these things happen in Hollywood. There's some interesting backstory around different deals that were being made and why this particular project was set up, which you probably know more about the behind the scenes on that, Grant. But evidently, there was a deal with IDOS to make a video game, and it started to be made and got to a place where creative differences were happening, and the one that got announced was shut down. But IDOS still wanted to move forward with the deal, and there was a window of time to have the right approval for a developer that could move forward and keep the deal in place, because business and creative are always kind of swirling in a dance. And I knew Mike Haller, who knew Peter Davis very well, who is a rights holder with Highlander. And Mike said, "Look, Peter, I know this group, Spark. They did the first Call of Duty game for console. They're really good. They love research. They love history. They would do the right Highlander adaptation because they would care about the franchise, they would care about the history and getting the research right, and they could really bring this to life. Trust me." And so it was very much about, as many things are, relationships. And so we were brought in and we did a concept and took that to IDOS. IDOS got very excited, and then the project was back on. So it was this kind of turnaround into our group, and then we kind of took it in a different direction. So we started working with Peter Davis and conceptualizing what we would do with it, and we like to approach things really from the character journey and what would be an experience that would be unique for gamers, and how could it be something that could be both in the spirit of the franchise but really position the franchise differently for gaming, so that it wasn't just something people would look at and go, "Oh, they've done another adaptation of the movie," or "Oh, they're just trying to do another kind of cheap license of Highlander that is just trying to leverage the fan base and not really do something meaningful." And our take on it was, let's do a female character. Let's make it the first Highlander that is a woman who is part of this world now, part of the contest, and is someone who didn't know that they were part of a Highlander experience until they are killed, and then set on this kind of journey to have revenge and find redemption, but really explore the idea of what it would feel like um, to suffer through time.
Yeah.
So as opposed to kind of the idea of these immortals that are just kind of enjoying life after life after life, really experiencing the pain of loss, of losing your family, of losing friends, of moving through time in a way that when you get hurt, we called it beautiful damage. You would see that damage, and you would feel kind of empathy for the character as they had to feel the pain of healing, so that as a player, it wasn't just a case of I'm immortal, so I'm going to go in there and fight. It's, well, I'm immortal as long as I don't lose my head,
Yeah.
but every time I lose a fight or every time I have to sacrifice for my goal, I'm going to feel the consequence of that pain. So, playing with the idea that you could be at the top of a cliff and your next objective was to be somewhere down at the bottom of that cliff,
Yeah.
and the quickest way to get there is to jump,
Yeah.
and you're going to have to take that leap and feel the consequence of that action, but it's in pursuit of the greater objective. So, playing with this idea of um, you know no, you don't want to die, but also what does it feel like when you can risk everything but death,
Mhm.
but it still has consequence and it still has impact, and it is a sacrifice. It's something that you're willing to do because you're driven for this bigger outcome. And then we had a few different settings, one of which was in Japan, hence my background.
Yeah.
We also wanted to be on the Scottish moors, and obviously in kind of present day locations, um, where things are kind of wrapped up and come to a climax between you and your adversary that you've been chasing through time, that killed your family. So it was a pretty epic, ambitious project. We definitely liked ambitious projects, and we ended up with a character and a world that I think would have been really powerful and unique.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And you're talking about the two different things there, that, the past and the present. And I love how they join together within gameplay. There's this fantastic moment on the kind of the sizzle reel that you guys did where she's in Japan, or and she's running down, but she remembers it from before, and you
Yeah.
see it kind of crackle out as she remembered it, and so she knows where she needs to get to, but now it looks different, and then she's running around, and then it all disappears again, and it's such a unique way of bringing a flashback into real time in a way that is her memory, but you're visually seeing it. It was genius.
It was a really, for the time, we did a lot of real interesting technology work to make that happen, because you're basically keeping two environments overlapping at the same time and then real time swapping them,
Yeah.
with technology that really wasn't built around doing that. So a lot of kind of theatrics and art on the tech side to make that happen. But the memory echo was going to be a central feature of the game, as you're mentioning, which I think uh, is another thing that I feel really personally inspired and excited and motivated to try to bring to life in our work when we were doing Call of Duty. It was about how to bring the past to life as an experience, so that you had a different sense of understanding, right? And with Katja and this game, visualizing memory and really understanding that we're all in a place that has deep history, right? We're surrounded by people with deep history. And if you're able to play a character that can help you see the world differently, that, oh yeah, there used to be a field here, or wow, there's this kind of forgotten area because time moves on, and we're at risk of forgetting the lessons that we've learned in the past
Oh yeah.
if we don't have these abilities to remember them or be custodians of them.
Yeah.
There was a tsunami that hit Japan a couple of years ago, and after the waters receded, they found a line of rocks that had just been overgrown on a path. But it was the rocks that marked the last time there was a tsunami in that area. And the message was, don't build below this line of rocks, right? But who knew, right? It had
Yeah.
been
Yeah.
forgotten. So, history becomes myth, becomes legend, becomes lore. And yet there's usually some wisdom in the past that we should bring forward.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Well, you mentioned earlier that you wanted to do something that was not only unique as far as not just the franchise but gameplay, but also keep within the spirit of Highlander. So how much did you and your team, immerse yourself in the Highlander franchise as far as the movies and TV series prior to working on this?
Yeah, our team loved research, and they loved to dive deep into details. So they were going, not only deep into the Highlander mythology and looking at the franchise Bible and watching all the movies and the TV show, and making sure that framework of narrative was woven through what we were doing with guest appearances and secondary characters that were from different places. But we love doing weapons research, and historical research. So our team, would go to locations and they would do research about the history of different places that we wanted to make set pieces in. They were doing authentic modeling of all sorts of different weapons, and then looking at the ways that the player character could actually change depending on what weapon they were using, and looking at the techniques of like different kinds of swordsmanship and how you would handle like a double-handed blade over a single-handed blade over a knife. So you would actually, depending on what weapons you chose, have different gameplay experiences as well, because you would have to learn the technique of using the weapons, um, which was pretty amazing too. I think games that aspire to not necessarily simulate reality, but present authenticity can really go a lot deeper than most games try to go in helping people to understand context, place, history, application, and Highlander is just filled with so much richness because you can draw on historical places and people and the mythology, but also the weapons and then antiquities, right? Like what you use in one game level as like a new sword, you might find again 300 years later as an antique that
Yeah,
you're like, oh, I remember this sword. I used it to kill blah blah blah, right? Like
yeah.
connecting the dots through time
Mm,
was something that we really were looking to do.
yeah. Oh, that's so cool. One that you mentioned the weapons. One of the things I loved about the gameplay was the way that the weapons are used in combat. And in particular, I think she's using a claymore.
Yeah.
And this is this is it's very it's pretty gross, but this fantastic when she slices a guy's head in half and twists it and breaks his neck at the same time. Just so inventive and gory.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just. But again, there's just there's that imagination even in those moments, which was
We
the
had a whole hand-to-hand combat system as well, so that you could not only like use the weapon, but then used kind of the different kinds of physical moves, and then throw people through the environment. So we
right.
also wanted you to be able to use the environment as a weapon, so
Sure.
that Kacho was really kind of like Jason Bourne, right?
Yeah.
Like could come in, have a weapon, but also have that experience of a couple hundred years of fighting people to draw on, and be just this kind of amazing kind of tactical machine, and be able to slow down and choose how you wanted to handle combat, so that a player could kind of lean into, well, I really want to use the environment and break things apart and have things fall on people, or no, you know what, I'm going to really be more stealthy and I want to do things like a ninja, so I'm going to really plot and plan and wait and time my attack. Or, I just want to go in guns blazing, and everybody's going to sound the alarm and the enemies are going to pour in, and I'm just going to have like a free for all. But allowing people to kind of shape the combat that they really wanted to explore was something that we were working towards. And then obviously for replay value, you could play the environments in different ways, because there's kind of the easy path, the hard path, and then like the ninja path, right? Like, are you actually going to be able to be the stealth warrior that just takes everybody down because you know what to do?
Yeah.
Because even replaying a level in some ways is like replaying through time, right? Like you play a level, it's almost like you get an echo of the past because now you can play it differently, right?
Yeah. 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 No, absolutely. That's a nice way of looking at
Yeah.
it.
I'm
So
always kind of curious talking about licensed products.
yeah.
Just how much. So as you're going along, you're making this, and you're doing your developing and story and gameplay. Was this a situation where like every little thing you had to get sign off from Davis Panzer, or did you have a lot of freedom, and then later they came back and say, yeah, no, you got to take all that out?
I've worked with a lot of different licenses in my career, and it really again goes back to the people that are involved, and how much they understand their own brand and their own franchise. A lot of kind of the licensing disasters happen because uh, people are in conflict with either what they see as their value versus what the audience wants from their brand, or they have people managing it that are not necessarily in love with what they're managing. With Highlander, there's no question that Peter Davis is like the uber fan of the property, and he was completely supportive as long as it was creatively bold and exciting and in the spirit of Highlander. He was like, I want it to just be awesome for gamers. Do what makes it awesome. And we would have some conversation as it related to characters that were pre-existing, but otherwise he was like, make it just an awesome experience in the world of Highlander, and it was all really a joy to work with. And then Eidos was kind of at arm's length. If Peter was approved with it, then they were pretty much fine with it, and they liked what we were doing. It's kind of a, the epilogue to the story is really that the Highlander game would live on in Tomb Raider, but there you go.
There are definitely some parallels there, absolutely, in the problem solving, the puzzle solving, and that kind of thing. And and you're going to draw the conclusion just because she's a girl, but there's yeah, it was. I loved, from what I've seen. I loved her as a character. I thought she was kind of sort of witty and smart and all that stuff. And that moment you mentioned earlier of her, choosing to fall down a crevasse, that we've got the footage of that as well.
Oh,
and
great.
just, and just great that here's a computer game where it's okay if you die.
Yeah, yeah.
The numbers aren't going to go down. You're not going to have to start at the beginning again. You just crick your neck and you're back at it.
Well, and it opens the door to like different ways to handle situations, right?
Yeah.
Like go ahead and pull the sword into yourself
Mm.
if you need to, because you can think beyond death.
Yeah.
It was a fun world to think about and play with, and again, I think it's an ideal opportunity when you have the support at a high level of a license that really wants quality and excellence.
Yeah.
It allows you to do some really amazing things. So that's what you hope for in these
Absolutely.
projects.
So of course the question begs, why didn't it happen?
So it was it was, I think, a combination of things. And again, you would probably have more information in the archives there than we had access to, because we're always kind of looking through the lens of, we're the shoemaker. We just want to make a good game, and we've got a bunch of artists, and we want to make something that we as fans would want to play and are excited about. But there are these overlaying contracts and deal negotiations, and at a certain point, it, from what we heard through the grapevine, was that there was this kind of decision gate where Eidos could kind of surrender the deal and keep what knowledge they had from the deal and development, and Peter Davis could basically, as part of the Highlander franchise, take the rights back and put them back into motion. Because I think there was another movie that was looking to be done with Summit, and there was some momentum around kind of like, well, that was going to be the engine, so maybe we redouble and look at that happening. And then you're in Hollywood, which is its own kind of flavor of madness in terms of how projects get made and set up and not done, or done differently than you think. And so it was basically another turnaround opportunity, and the game project just became kind of frozen in ember at that point.
Yeah.
And then shortly thereafter, the Tomb Raider project was announced, which, again, I think that ideas propagate, right? And we were working very closely with Eidos and the team, and you look at like some of even the posing of the Lara Croft reboot, and there's a concept image of Katja, and it's almost exactly the same as like the concept image of the new Lara Croft. when it was announced. So again, it's however things migrated through the dialogue. Who knows? At the end of the day, it's kind of nice that some of the ideas found their way to the market,
Yeah.
and it was certainly a project that we really loved and would have loved to have seen to get to the ending of, because I think it would have been a really unique title in the world of Highlander and a unique title for games at the
Yeah.
time. It had
Yeah.
like some really interesting game mechanics and setups that would have been fun to share with people.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree, and I'm glad at least we can show some of that now
Yeah.
to the world because it deserves to be seen. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
No,
It
it's
was it was a beautiful character that was created. When you bring artists together for games, a lot of times it's like, how much can you put in the suitcase, right? Do you want to have high resolution textures? Do you want high resolution game characters? Do you want a lot of effects on the screen? How many environments? How destructible are the environments? And our suitcase is getting bigger and bigger, every platform wave. So PlayStation 5, it's a bigger suitcase, but there's still limits to how much you can put in there. And we really wanted to go big on highly detailed characters. So the enemies that you fought, they had, they had wounds, they had history, you could see them change. They had different kinds of costumes, different weapons. We wanted Katya to have this sense of beautiful damage so that her whole kind of skin could get cut and it could get burned and it could heal. But we really wanted to make it about this kind of intensity and intimacy of conflict. And then the world would be kind of painted in a way that could change, because ultimately the thing that was consistent in Katya's view of the world was the immortals that she was traveling with, right? So those have the highest resolution, those had the detail. The world is a world that's kind of shifting. Oh, there's a McDonald's, there's not a McDonald's, it's a field. How is, like, it just all kind of blurs. So we wanted to give people a sense that, like, okay, the world you're in might be beautiful, but it's kind of, it's changing, it's ethereal, it's the world you're moving through as an immortal. But what you really care is, this is the immortal that I'm here to kill.
yeah.
And how do I know that that immortal now has a couple hundred years on them, as do I? And how does that relationship shift as you move through this kind of dreamscape of time?
So, unfortunately, obviously, this game didn't happen. But as you're talking about this, I see that you guys like really pushed kind of the envelope as far as gameplay and what could be done with games. Were there things from this? And I don't mean this in a Tomb Raider kind of way, but are there things from this that you carried forward into, other work where you're like, listen, we can do this, we can push this further,
So after Highlander, one of our next projects was Lost Planet 3, which Matt Sophos, who was the game designer on and the director of that project, would go on and do the most recent God of War, which won Game of the Year last year. So again, like, these ideas, they propagate, right? And they cascade out. And the things that we were exploring with Highlander in terms of a character that felt very grounded and real. With Lost Planet 3, we were able to push that even further with motion capture, which we started to do with Highlander, but we actually did a whole character with one-to-one motion capture and environmental interaction at another level of immersion, so that you could talk to different characters, you could interact with objects, the landscape. And we really tried to create this world of, what would it be like to be on an ice planet as kind of a regular person with a job, and how does it feel to really live in a world at a deeper level. So there's definitely a continuum. You start to work on a character, you want to go deeper on a character, that leads to this idea of this kind of remote kind of oil catter, but on an ice planet. And you know, the combat kind of came back around in some ways in a project called Yaiba, where we were doing a very different kind of world, but again, working at with swords and combat and playing with environments. So yeah, I mean every experience, like in a Highlander, right? Like you carry it with you and you apply it, and hopefully you learn and you're able to continue to develop new techniques.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. So what are you doing at the moment? You still working within gaming?
So at the moment, I've been working on a project called Moxie, which I'd been doing games for many years. I started working at the Disney company with things like Aladdin and Toy Story and Hercules, and that led to the Jim Henson company doing Muppets and doing a bunch of other kind of video games with branded characters. And then Spark, we start out to really create game first narrative experiences. And after doing that for about 13 years, the game industry was starting to really get into a mindset of, okay, we want to make everything kind of a factory. We want to just do sequels. We're going to do big budgets, and we're just going to do a lot of them. And a lot of the playfulness of the early days of games had kind of drained out of the business, so that everything was these kind of giant teams and huge risk and big budgets, and I really was missing the experimental where you could say, "Hey, let's make a game about a walking hamburger or whatever," right? You could just kind of you could do interesting, weird games. And I was interested in augmented reality and robotics, and I came across a group that wanted to make a companion for kids that could come to life in their world. And so it kind of went back to some of the early things we were thinking about, to go back to like how experiences move you forward in time. Years and years ago at Disney, I had this idea to do this thing that was called Mickey 2000, which dates it. But the idea was to make Mickey an operating system for a child's life, so that if they played the Mickey Mouse video game, it would intelligently talk to the Mickey Mouse plush doll that could give you hints that would work with kind of like if you went to Disneyland. Um, so there was this whole ecosystem around Mickey, and it was too early, and there's a whole other story of why those things don't happen. But with this new robot project, it was a chance to kind of go back and say, okay, well, what if we inverted gaming? What if instead of having a kind of a living game player in a virtual world, what if we had a virtual character in a living world? So it's the inversion of gaming. And what if we really made that something that was like what we were doing with Highlander, in some ways, a character that you could talk to and share a journey with, and that could kind of um, offer you thoughtful insights about experience that you're sharing over time. And that became our little robot project, which is still developing. We're in beta right now, but I think it's again going to be a really unique expression of character, narrative, and interactivity in a way that that I get excited about. Like how do you push forward how we relate to technology and how technology informs and develops us. If you're playing a game, I hope that at the end of that gameplay experience, you've not only learned how to solve the puzzles and the play mechanics that you are presented, but maybe you can take that into your own life and say, huh, okay, this is a situation, or this is a place that maybe there was a battle at 300 years ago. How do I look at this place differently? How do I have my worldview shifted through that experience of gameplay to maybe think about my real world, if this is real world, right? Um, Differently. That's what I get excited about. So that's been the current project du jour.
Yeah, it sounds
Cool.
amazing.
Yeah.
www.embodied.com.
Oh,
Thank
excellent.
you.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
we'll get it up there.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Definitely. We'll get that out there.
Thanks.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. Do you have anything else that you wanted to ask, Joey?
No, I think that pretty much covered it. Other than can you rally everyone and please make the Highlander game still?
I,
I
I
know.
think the the pain of an unfinished project is something that only creative people truly understand. And I
Yeah.
think if we could find an opportunity to call people back to a Highlander project, I'm sure many of them would come because it's unfinished business, right? Like
Yeah.
there's a vision and a project and a thing that people wanted to create that we could only create even better now, right? With the
Yeah.
tools and the technology of the Unreal Engine today, that memory change experience, would be even more spectacular.
Yeah.
Um, so there's still time, right?
Yep.
You never know. Stranger things have happened.
Well, thanks for trying at least. So.
Yes. Yeah, no, absolutely. 100%. Thank you for not only, trying it, but, pouring your passion for not just the franchise and your team, not just the franchise itself, but being creative with it, and trying to do something which, as you said at the very beginning, wasn't just a case of let's just make a normal game where they're just going to hit each other with swords. Um,
Right? Like let's do something that really dives into what is the authentic experience of being immortal,
yeah.
and what weapons do you choose and why, and how that's shaped by your past,
Yeah.
and what future are you really trying to create.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
exciting stuff.
Yeah. No, it really is.
Great. Well,
Oh,
thank you guys for the time to chat about the project, and
Yeah.
I look forward to seeing some of those videos from the archives. Um, it's exciting that it's going to be out there, and thank you for talking about it. The
oh,
team
oh,
really loved the work, and they're going to be excited to know that this is getting out there.
oh, good. I'm
Oh,
glad
good.
they
Excellent.
deserve it.
Yes.
Well, look, thank you ever so much. I really appreciate it. It's been lovely speaking to you, and hopefully we'll speak again soon. I'm sure.
Great. Thanks
All
so
right.
much
All
for the
right.
time.
Thanks,
Thanks a lot,
Craig.
Mike. Cheers. That was fantastic, wasn't it?
That that is certainly a game that I would love to have played. It sounds amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
not just as a Highlander game, but as a computer game, a video game. It
Yeah.
does something different, and they sounded like they were going to keep the spirit of the franchise we love, but also take a lot of elements from it and advance the gameplay, and it just
Yeah.
sounds fantastic.
No,
So
absolutely. The
glad we
sheer amount of passion and creativity they were pouring into that
yeah, yeah.
makes me sad, Joe. It
I
makes me.
know, I know. It's just
But you know what we need? You know what everyone wants to know? Everyone wants to know. Of course they do.
That's
What
why
would
they're
we do?
watching. Yes.
Yeah, they don't care about these guests. They want to know what we want to. That's fine. They'll have switched off by now anyway, so that's fine.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. What do we want to do? What would we do for our perfect Highlander game? So we're going to do what we've done in the past. We are going to incorporate a 3-minute pitch.
Yes.
And this is a point where we get to say what we would pitch. And if we go over 3 minutes, then this happens.
Pick up the pace or die, Highlander!
And nobody wants the Guardian to come at them. No.
Ooh.
No. 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 I love you, Christian. So let me know if you're watching. So I'm sorry. We're taking the mickey out of the Guardian, not you. You're a fantastic filmmaker.
Yes. Yeah.
Love you to bits. So, with that said, let's start with a 3-minute pitch from your good self on what you would do for a computer game. Go.
Okay, so I would absolutely do a massive multiplayer online game. Open world, basically WoW, but in the Highlander franchise. However, because I know and I'm business savvy enough to understand licensing rights and various aspects of the franchise are tied up either on the movie side or the TV side, and sometimes things don't mix. I would certainly start out the game as just kind of your basic, adventure game. You have this open world, you encounter other immortals, you get more powerful as you kill them. Sometimes they're just non-player characters, sometimes they're the other people playing. At the same time, I would be working with, Davis Panzer and other rights holders to get other aspects so that eventually you would have, downloadable content, or, this season we're introducing the Watchers and you start encountering Watchers and it opens up that and the Hunters and things like that. As you get those rights, you're also able to introduce, people from, immortals from the TV series and things like that. Keep doing this. You do this for years, and eventually, as anything has its lifetime, it comes to a natural end. 6 years down the road, you basically have an end contest, and at that point, as your character in the game gets killed, you're done with the game. You get your consolation prize, maybe some merch if it's available, but you're done until you actually have someone who is only one, who is the last immortal, the last player, and maybe he gets a walk-on role in whatever movie or TV series is happening then, something like that. So so it would be an open world, online thing, but with a finite end. Again, being business savvy, you understand where this is kind of getting towards the end, so let's really move towards the gathering phase of it and end it. Yeah. So there we go. Did I make it?
You did. Yeah. Just well done. Good stuff. That was very good. And I agree with most of that, to be honest. And the annoying thing is I have to make mine different because the variation. But okay, here we go. All right. So I think what I would love to do most, if I think about myself as a fan, what I want to do is I want to play as Connor McLeod, and for some will want to play as Duncan McLeod, or I want to play as one of the characters that I've watched and loved, this whole time. So, given that it's Highlander, and at the risk of introducing too many more ancillary kind of family members, we don't want I don't know,
Bill McLeod.
yeah, exactly, or just think of the worst name possible, and we'll go with that. Let's have Connor McLeod, and let's have his journey, but it can be so much bigger than we've already seen. And I like what you're saying about your added content, and these days it's all about that, and your DLCs and things like that. So let's have DLCs of different things that he's wear, outfits that he can wear. You can have different outfits from different movies, or that kind of thing. But also the major things, let's have the DLCs be flashbacks. So let's say you have an overall arc where you need to uncover something, where you need to find out where somebody is, because you want to get to a. Let's not think about it in terms of the gathering yet, because maybe that's too soon for that. But you're gonna have things that you want to uncover in your life. So it's not necessarily about getting to the end, but it's about, let's make it more about it's sort of an interesting kind of computery game type. Yeah, you can tell I don't play computer games, can't you? Let's make it an interesting computery game thing. But let's do all that good stuff. But let's have you be able to progress by having access to flashbacks where you find out information that you need to then go forward, and then you meet more characters there, and also DLCs, like you can have extra characters come in, you can have all these like mythos, you can have it all mix, and like you say, rights issues aside, you can have all of this stuff kind of meld and merge, and let's have it so you can have Kane, you can have the Kurgan, you can have everybody from the movies and the series, and have everything combined. Let's throw Quentin in. Let's just chuck Quentin in. Just as an Easter egg. Have this little redhead child come in, the green top, and like, oh, I like you, Connor. Let's just, Sorry, Mick Pellis. That was not me trying to do your voice. That was
wow.
Oh God, he's coming for me. So that's what I love to see. But what I told the guy Idus when I met him at the LeadsCon was basically what I wanted was to have that kind of Mortal Kombat style thing amidst the game. I want to see Connor versus I don't know, Mythos. Let's have Duncan versus the Kurgan. Let's have all of these characters from the whole franchise.
Pick up the pace or die, Highlander!
I'm dead.
Guardian got you.
You. I tried. I really tried. But in summary, what I think what I want to see most out of it is I want to be able to pit characters that I love against each other, and just have it. That isn't the whole game, but as an aside, as like side thing, just have that ability to kind of just have them kind of face off each other, and just have a bit of a duel with like people that you never would be able to and never be able to see. So
Ramirez versus Fitzcairn.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just pull in these great, and reenact, and it basically it's Mortal Kombat. Imagine them with all the different backgrounds, and imagine how if things, the big what if Ramirez made it to the end with the Kurgan. Let's have Ramirez and Kurgan on top of Silver Cup. A DLC of obviously I'm still going, but never mind. Sorry about that. What would Ramirez wear? Let's have a DLC of like a modern day Ramirez.
Sure.
Maybe it could be the stuff he wears in Highlander 2 or whatever. But oh God, you could bring in Highlander 2. There's so much you could do with it in a kind of in an ancillary way that just would appease that kind of fanboy chance to get to play these characters off against each other outside of the bigger, wider, more important game. So yeah, there you go. That's my 12 hour.
I would play your game.
Thank you, and I will play yours. So nice. Right. Well, look, thank you everyone for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it and found it interesting. We certainly have. It's always fun to find out new stuff. So Joe, do you want to take us out?
Yes. Let's see if I can get this right. So yes, I will do this. Let me get prepared. No, that's too. Okay, I'll give it a shot. Here we go. This is Joe Dilworth for Highlander Heart, reminding you to hold fast and don't lose your head. So, on behalf of Grant Kempster and myself, Joe Dilworth, for Highlander Heart. See, I already blew it. Let me try it. Here we go. Okay. On behalf of Grant, too much pressure now. I'm not going to include you in this. Sorry.
That's fine. Just go for it. Just yeah.
Okay.